Now, some past and present student leaders of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology say continued government interference in reconstituting the governing council will further delay reopening of the school. Students are expected back on campus on Thursday after being sent home following a violent demonstration which led to massive destruction to property. Government dissolved the council and replaced it with an interim body, but later tasked the Chancellor, Sentihine Otumfuo Tutu II, to reconstitute it. There is, however, disagreement over government's insistence members of the council must not include members of the previous council, a position opposed by lecturers and staff. A group of students led by past student leaders want government to soften its stance on the issue. Nana Aljima has more in this report.
Government on Monday announced no member of the old council will be allowed to be on the new governing body. According to government, they are party to the impasse. The Teachers and Education Workers Union and other interest parties have kicked against the directive and withdrawn their services. Students who are in support of TEWU's stance believe government's replacement of its representative to the new council is enough to ensure neutrality. The group, calling itself School Must Reopen Now movement, is being spearheaded by former Student Representative Council President Samuel Amwakukusi. Notes some bodies will need fresh elections to change their members on the council.
And these unions select their representation based on their various constitutions that govern the various unions. In the case of SRC, the SRC constitution clearly states and emphatically that the SRC president, by virtue of the position, shall be the representation of students on the university council. And also, these associations, namely TEWU, UTAG, and SRC, go through elections to elect individuals to office, knowing very well that those individuals they are electing into those specific offices will be their representation on university council.
The frustrated students believe government's objective to bring new members to ensuring impartiality in resolving the impasse is flawed. They argue it defeats government's earlier decision to present some members of the old council to join the interim council. Mr. Mwakukusi says government's new membership on the council can guarantee the needed fairness.
But if government argues that none of the members of the old council should be on the new council because the old council is a party to the impasse and that they being on council amounts to presiding over matters in which their own decisions and conduct is a subject of investigation, then we say, why is it that the interim council that government constituted 2 weeks ago with a 3-month mandate to investigate the route and resolve the differences had 5 members of the old council? Weren't they going to investigate their own actions?
In the midst of the issues, foreign students are on campus waiting for reopening. Former president of the International Students Association, Kenechukwu Egbe, says foreign students rule under the present condition.
You would have to make expenses, incur costs, financial liabilities, and now because most of the shops aren't open, it means that that means the greater the financial liability for students. So I'll say a lot of students are not happy at all. Yesterday they had the ISA, that's International Students General Assembly, and most of the questions that were thrown at the student leaders or the leadership of the ISA bordered around when will school resume. So a lot of students are frustrated.
Reporting for Joy News, Nana Aljima, Kumasi.
Now here in Accra, he left school one morning only to wake up in the hospital after being knocked down by a vehicle at Zongo Junction. 15-year-old Peter, not his real name, is now nursing fractures in his neck and severe wounds on his leg. That's just one of the many pedestrian knockdown incidents on the Medina-Adenta Highway, which have triggered agitations among residents for at least 5 footbridges on the stretch to be completed. Komla Dome reports school heads along the stretch say parents are withdrawing their children from the schools as a result of the frequent knockdowns.
He's a 15-year-old Form 3 student of Elim School at Medina Zongo Junction. He was knocked down by a vehicle 3 weeks ago while leaving school after extra classes on what has now become the deadly Medina-Adenta Highway.
I was walking to the bus station, so that I'll pick her and go home. So as I was about to cross, I saw a car moving. It came to pass by, and then there's some cars coming from the other side, from the top road. So I thought that the place was free for me to cross. So when I stepped my foot on the street, then the car I saw that came to pass hit me, and my legs were under the tire. My leg was under the tire, and it scratched me on the ground.
He is currently nursing severe fractures in his neck and leg from the incident.
My X-ray was shown to the doctor, the neurosurgeon. It was shown to the neurosurgeon. Then he said that I'm having some fractures in my neck. It has also affected my spine.
Peter, not his real name, is the most recent victim of a rampant road accident on the stretch. And unlike some of the others, he's lucky to be alive. He is grateful to have another shot at life, though the incident has disrupted his academic work.
I slept at the hospital because of the condition. I slept in the hospital for 2 days. Then I was discharged. So the doctor said I will be able to come to school and do my normal school activities. But the doctor said I shouldn't be moving my neck just anyhow, otherwise I might get paralyzed.
He hopes to be back on his feet again to continue preparing for the final exam. The director of Elim School, Gabriel Gadamo, is frustrated students of the school are knocked down often. He recently narrowly escaped death on the same stretch.
It's been so terrifying, the rate at which lives are lost on this stretch. The fact is, we had some uncompleted footbridges for years, and nothing's been done on them, government from government. And if this continue to exist, some of the drivers are so impatient that they don't have even to waste a second for human beings to cross before they move on. So lives are being lost every day. Our school children are being knocked here and there every day.
The teachers are not spared either. Mr. Gadamo and his student Peter want the abandoned footbridges on the stretch fixed as soon as possible to avoid further knockdowns.
We need immediate action to be taken on this thing. Otherwise, more lives, more future children or more future workers, labor force of the country are being destroyed. Yes.
At the Nkwantanan DA Primary and JHS, one of the teachers tells me only last month they buried a primary school pupil who was killed by a speeding vehicle. 3 others narrowly escaped death even though they were knocked down. She would not speak to me on record because she did not have permission from the Municipal Education Directorate. At Adenta, where a 22-year-old woman was killed Friday and another Monday, headmaster of a taught-to-teen school, Emmanuel Kwesi Archen Kwansa, is worried the knockdowns have affected enrollment.
The school has lost some of the children because the parents are afraid. They come to school only to be told that they are knocked down by a car, which is worrying.
Not even the school's intervention to hire and pay wardens to guide the children to cross the deadly stretch has addressed the challenge.
We solicited some wardens, 3 of them who come every day for us to give them allowance at the end of every month. So that's what is sustaining us.
The traffic lights right here are all malfunctioning too. Government has said it can fix the footbridges in 2019, but school heads around here and residents fear before then half the number of residents along this stretch may have died.
Something needs to be done about it now. If you can't even do the bridge, look, personally, I'm asking you to do the traffic lights. If there's no money to do the traffic light, please, assemblymen, come around the houses. I'm sure the people of this community would contribute to fix the traffic lights, honestly.
While Peter recovers from his fractures and injuries, he hopes none of his schoolmates and other pedestrians will ever be knocked down again by vehicles on this stretch. It's only a quest to attain education, and that should not be a deadly journey. Certainly not one of no return. Komla Adom, Madina Adenta, Accra.
Well, former dean of the Gimpa Law School, Kofi Abochi, has blamed what he calls the misplaced priorities by parliamentarians for the unfortunate deaths that have occurred on the Medina Adenta Highway. Speaking at a lecture on the importance of civic responsibilities and accountable governance, Mr. Abochi noted the country will encounter these problems until members of parliament cease to work as an extension of the executive arm of government or any political party they are affiliated with. Nancy Imefajiradozi has more in this report.
In the past few days, there's been a big media campaign for the completion of 6 major footbridges on the Medina Adenta Highway, which is said to have claimed about 192 lives in the last year. Many of these were children crossing the highway to school. The gruesome deaths have triggered a conversation with an urgent call on the government to fix the bridges. Former Dean of the Gimpa Law School, Kofi Abochi, attributes the situation to the failure of parliamentarians to act in the interest of their constituents.
So you have parties in parliament seeing themselves as extension of the executive. I think that is where we got it wrong until today. If parliament was to play its accountability role and responsibility as expected of parliament, the Adenta footbridge would not be a problem. And the reason it wouldn't be a problem is that the Minister of Roads and Highways by now would have been in Parliament answering questions, and those question time in Parliament will not be perfunctory. They will be substantive, because somebody may pay a dear price for the failure to perform a ministerial function. So the structure of government right from the base to the top macro are designed in such a way to ensure that there are reciprocal checks. Unfortunately, those checks have not been working.
Chairperson of the National Commission for Civic Education, NCCE, Josephine Nkrumah, also called for sanitization and stabilization of the political space, devoid of violence.
When there is a total acceptance of the political regime by citizens who find the processes of governance as legitimate, political stability can be achieved. We should have a vibrant political space, free of violence and political thuggery, now referred to as vigilantism.
Meanwhile, Executive Director for the Center for Democratic Development, Professor Henry Kwesi Prempeh, says the citizenry must embark on a collective action that will force government to take decisions in the best interest of Ghana.
That if you really want the kind of citizen mobilization that produces action, you must always take into account that political types like foot soldiers are also an organized voice, and presidents listen to them, and they must listen to them for good reason, because they deliver on elections. If you want your voice, your counter voice, to be more powerful, you have to organize.
The event ended with calls for an end to political interference in the affairs of state institutions.
Well, for Medina MP Boniface Abubakar Sadiq is assuring work on footbridges on the Medina Adenta Highway will be completed in about 4 months. He tells Joy News President Akufo-Addo has given executive approval for emergency release of funds for the completion of the footbridges after he raised the issue at Cabinet. Numerous deaths have been recorded on the road this year alone, and the Ghana Highways Authority had initially indicated work could be done in a year. But the MP says it could be less. Mr. Sadiq says portions of money for the work have already been released.
I had the opportunity to be in Cabinet. We raised the matter. The President, in his own wisdom, has given approval for the completion of the footbridges. But you know, it was being constructed by a Chinese company.
Where the President has given approval means what exactly? Because earlier there was a complaint that funds were unavailable. The
what you should know is that the whole bridge is about 10 years old now. Under normal circumstances, the major part of the whole bridge has been done. What is left is just the arms of the bridge, where you climb and where you descend. That's the only places that were left. But that is the footbridge itself.
So that the President's approval is that what exactly?
Which means that the President has authorized the Minister for Finance to assist the Minister for Roads and Highways to ensure that those bridges are completed. But the fact that the approval has been given doesn't mean that the project will be completed immediately. There are systems, procurement processes have to go through before you can get it done. And my follow-up with the minister, in fact, he gave me the assurance.
The finance minister, the roads minister.
The roads minister, which means who has indicated that within a period of 3 months, they should be able to get procurement processes done. And I don't think doing the arms of the bridge should take you more than 1 or 2 months. And so I'm very sure that once the bridges are awarded on contract, because originally the contractor, listen, let me finish. What is happening is that the contractor who originally began those bridges is currently in the country. The contract has not been abrogated. But because of the nature, because this contract was tied to other contracts. The main road, that is the highway to Aburi, was done by the Chinese contractor, and the bridges were part of the contract. And that is why they were able to, yes. And the same Chinese company has now moved to the Suhum dual carriage. And so they've gone back because they demanded payment of some amount, and part of that payment has been done. So they've moved to the major project. But negotiations have gone through to ensure that those projects are taken and given to other contractors. Because if you go to Medina, there are 6 bridges in number. And so the minister, in his whole wisdom, is thinking that it would be better to give it out to 3 contractors so that each will do 2. And so if they give them out immediately, at least we think the contract, the bridges will be done as quickly as possible.
Right, so we've been staying with this story about the high rate of knockdowns on the Adenta-Medina or Medina-Adenta highway because of how serious the situation is. You heard the story about the young boy, 15-year-old boy, who was knocked down. Now I'm going to show you a video which hopefully is going to shock you, to get you to appreciate how serious these knockdowns are and why nobody should actually be a victim of a knockdown. Now, you see this video where that guy just got knocked down. We're going to show it to you on screen. For those of you who are sensitive, you may not want to watch this one. But you observe how the vehicle knocks the pedestrian and puts him on the side. This is not a really serious, this is not really one of the really serious knockdowns, because in this case you can tell it's possible that the person would end up being injured. But in several incidents where the people die, the vehicle knocks you down and runs over you whilst you lay on the floor. That's how serious these knockdowns are, and we hope nobody gets knocked down on that Medina-Adenta highway again. All we have to do, apparently, is to fix the footbridges. Let's hope that happens as quickly as possible. We're taking a break here on Joy News Prime News Station. An Afrobarometer survey conducted in September this year has revealed 57% of Ghanaians want government to be able to stop media publications it deems harmful to society. The survey is also said to show a sharp drop in support for media freedom from 55% in 2005 to 36% in 2017. Although most Ghanaians indicated they rely on radio and television for information, they still think their activities need some form of regulation. Speaking at the stakeholder engagement on support for media freedom in Ghana, Dean of the School of Information and Communication at the University of Ghana, Professor Audrey Gadzekpo, said the survey must be a wake-up call for the media to have introspection into their works to win back the public trust.
It's useful for us to begin to ask ourselves why. Why is it that a majority of Ghanaians want to see media freedoms curtailed? Is it because the media is unethical, or they consider the media as unethical and they are no longer tolerant? Or is it because they are complacent about media freedoms because they take it for granted? After all, 67% of the people said that in Ghana we enjoy media freedom, so they've come to take it for granted. Or is it because they're tired of the content of media, which tends to be very politicized in a partisan way, MPP versus NDC? Or is it because they also know that politicians have captured the media such that a majority of media organizations belong to political operatives, not parties necessarily, but people aligned to political parties and perhaps driving a particular political agenda, and so people have become skeptical of the media. Some of the findings also point to the media's own behaviors. For example, there's a finding on corruption and the fact that people think that the media is corrupt. And so there are lots of reasons why I imagine we get results like this. I think it's worrying. For me, I think it's worrying, particularly because you can do a trend analysis. You can look at it diachronically. There have been 7 surveys, as the data shows, and this is the lowest, and it's like a huge dip. I think that the last survey in 2014, I believe, showed 55%. More people believe that media freedom should not be curtailed. Now it's 36%, you know, so it's quite a dip. And I think that it gives us reason to pause and perhaps have robust discussions on 2 fronts.
Meanwhile, Executive Director of the Ghana Center for Democratic Development, Professor Kwesi Prempeh, believes the outcome of the survey may have been influenced by politicians owning media houses in the country and the lack of appreciation of press freedom by young Ghanaians interviewed.
Learning that the public also has, a majority of Ghanaians trust the media. So it's not really a trust question, right? The majority of Ghanaians trust the media more than they trust government, and yet are willing to live with more regulations. So it's something that is intrinsic to the media. The real issue is there's something about Ghanaian media that is causing the public to, as it were, become more tolerant of media. I have suggested, for example, that one possible reason might be that, well, 25 years into the Fourth Republic, most of the people who constitute the sample for Afrobarometer are young Ghanaians. They have only known media freedom. They did not know the era before media freedom, and therefore probably can afford to risk what it is that we have. So that's one possibility, that the only thing they know is media freedom. They have never known the days of one broadcasting house that was owned by the government. They've always known these various media outlets that we have today. So they can afford the luxury of asking for more regulation. But at a deeper level too, it may well be that, you know, there's something about media behavior that is causing this. We've explored many, many possibilities. There's definitely, the media is not free of blame in this space. So you could see the media as not just, you could see this issue not as about just media freedom, but it's about media license. The media is actually just, has awesome power and maybe abusing it sometimes. There's that aspect of it. There's also the fact that many of us may be frustrated with what appears to be partisan capture of media space.
Majority Leader Osei Mensah-Bonsu has described as populist Kumbungu MP Res Mubarak's decision to ride a bicycle to Parliament to protest what he says is hardship in the country. The MP says he rode 17 kilometers to Parliament House on Tuesday morning to, among others, highlight the rising cost of fuel in the country. He tells Joy News these are unprecedented times.
I did that with the view to highlighting the concerns that have been raised by constituents, by ordinary Ghanaians who are feeling the burning injustices of our society, who are struggling to get by, the taxi drivers who have had to complain about their inability to make, to make their sales, the market women and men, the barbers, it was to highlight their plight. For the first time in the history of our country, we have never seen the kinds of job losses, the kinds of things we are seeing today, where businesses are going bust, where companies are collapsing, where people are struggling. I've seen people who can't even raise 100 Ghana cedis to buy medication. I've seen people who are working, but their salary can't even take them to the 15th of the month.
Hasn't it always been so, even when your party...
At what point in the history of our country did you see many media houses laying off workers? At what point? At what point in the history of our country did you see fuel price hit more than 5 cedis per litre? At what point in the history of our country did you see the cedi to dollar being over 5 Ghana cedis? At what point? So this is the first time.
Majority Leader Osei Sobonsu concedes the price of fuel has gone up, but says government cannot be blamed.
I concede that the price of fuel has risen up. But what are the factors? The factors really are legion. First of all, we all agree that the market price should reflect the world market price. At the time of the exit of the NDC, the price of fuel was between $37 and $40, right? Today, what is it? So, commensurately then, if we want to be mathematical about this, one would then suggest that the price ought to have gone up at least twofold. Because today, the price of fuel, petroleum, is in the region of 75, 76. Sometimes it even shoots up to about $80 per barrel. That is the first discernment. The second thing, of course, would be the strength of your own currency. There's been some depreciation of the cedi. We all recognize that. What is the cause of the depreciation? Unfortunately, what is even happening cannot be blamed on government. When you know the truth, I want to play to the gallery. It's cheap populism. It's not only populist, it's not merely populist, it's cheap populism.
One person is feared dead in a motor accident on the Accra Tema motorway. 4 others were injured in the accident, which occurred at about 2 p.m. Tuesday after their bus ran into a mound of concrete debris on the side of the road in an attempt to swerve another vehicle that was overtaking at the time. Eyewitnesses say the injured were rushed to the Tema General Hospital for treatment. Kenneth Awuche Dakon's report.
The 49-seater bus belonging to the construction firm Rabotech Limited was said to be heading to its Tema office when the accident happened. An eyewitness, Emmanuel Omari, said they had to appeal to passers-by to help convey the victims to hospital.
Roadside, the bus was coming from Accra towards Tema. So there's a small car swerve. So he wanted to swerve the car, but it couldn't happen. We have some concrete for us. I think he climbed the concrete. So we could do service. So by that time the bus was turning. We have people, so they also be helping. So one guy gets inside, the way we push him. So we push him, then we put a legs to the back. So we rush him to the taxi. I think the one owner was joining him to the general hospital.
Maxwell Frimpong runs a business along the Accra Tema motorway and complained bitterly about the indiscriminate manner in which workers who patch the potholes on the route abandon their materials.
What we have to do is we have to advise those concrete people. They are normally getting. It's not only this place, they have tipped another one over there. The same thing happened last week. So I think it's a matter of advising the road users, the National Safety Campaign. They should educate the drivers very well, because how can you be on a motorway and be swerving to a different place? So I think we have to advise ourselves as a driver. We have to advise ourselves how we control our speed on the motorways.
Meanwhile, the injured are said to be responding to treatment at the Tema General Hospital.
There was total chaos at the regional police headquarters at Tamale in the northern region this afternoon when an angry mob besieged the station to free a suspect in custody. The police had to fire warning shots to disperse the crowd and calm rising tensions. Joining us on telephone right now to give us details of the incident is correspondent Martina Bugre. Good evening to you, Martina. What more can you report about this incident at the Regional Police Command?
What we gathered was that a suspect was picked over some land dispute. There's a land in contest between two people, and one had put blocks and cement on the parcel of land, and so somebody went to destroy it. The police said they got information last Saturday that a particular person had done it, and so they arrested the person. Some group of people came to bail the guy, but they were told that he had mentioned some names, and so they needed to get more people to interrogate them. That didn't go down well with them, and they started attacking the police officers. They wanted to free the guy from the grips of the police. And how did the police react to all of that? What the police PRO said was that it was so intense that they had to arm themselves and fire some warning shots to get the crowd dispersed. But he also said that they were able to arrest 4 people, and those 4 people would help them in investigations to get more people who were part of the mob action. All right, thank you very much, Martina Bugre, bringing us that update from Tamale in the northern region. The Ghana Revenue Authority has launched an operation in the Upper West region to ensure that products that have tax stamps on them before they get to the consumer. The exercise, which is being replicated across all 10 regions of the country, requires distributors and retailers to affix the tax stamps or risk having their products seized. Joy News Upper West correspondent Rafiq Salam reports from Wa.
The tax stamp, also known as exercise tax stamp, came into being in 2013 by the Excise Tax Stamp Act 2013, Act 873, by Parliament of Ghana to enable the Ghana Revenue Authority enforce the affixing of stamps on specified exercisable goods. According to the Act, manufacturers and importers of goods were required to begin affixing the stamps by 2015. However, it was stalled for 5 years due to some implementation challenges. A team of officials from the GRA head office embarked on an unannounced inspection tour to some warehouses and shops of distributors and retailers in the one municipality. The team, led by Principal Revenue Officer Nathan Dankwa, was satisfied with the level of compliance in the region.
Practically now what we see is that the new products coming out have the tax stamp fixed. The challenge is with the old stock, and some of the manufacturers have given the tax stamp to be fixed. Others are yet to do it. So the ones that do not have the tax stamp, we'll make sure they have the tax stamp. And we've seen that we took some of the products from the shelf. Yes, others too, we observe that the tax stamps are wrongly fixed on some of the products. We've also taken that one from the shelf. We expect them to do the right thing. So it's an ongoing exercise. We'll be here for a while to ensure that the products have the tax stamp fixed.
For the few dealers whose products do not have the excise stamps affixed, explain that some of the goods were old stock.
So the ones
now, if you pick them, the honest, I'm paying for it. So then it will go against you. Why won't you let me link you to those who brought them?
We know that.
This explanation was not convincing to the GRA officials, hence the decision to seize some selected non-stamp goods. Some of the exercisable goods that needed to be affixed with the stamps are carbonated products, which included alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages and bottled water. Reporting for Joy News, Rafiq Salam. Wow.
The Energy Commissioners introduced additional features to a mobile phone application they developed to help consumers identify energy-efficient refrigerators before purchase. Initially developed with refrigerators in mind, the Commission says the new improved app can now identify energy-efficient air conditioners as well in the shops where they can be purchased. An inspection team from the Commission Tuesday toured some shopping centres to demonstrate how the app is used and warned shops which mislead their customers with wrong labelling on their fridges and air conditions will be sanctioned. Therefore, Evans Chiri reports.
The team first visited the Melcom Plus shopping center at the industrial area, where they demonstrated how the app works. The team, with the help of the app, successfully identified a refrigerator that had a label which did not match its actual energy rating. Such appliances, Mr. Zan says, will be confiscated.
When we find out that, first of all, you are retailing without the labels, there are procedures we take in-house. We will make sure that those appliances are taken off the shelf. They are taken off the shelf. Then samples are tested to be sure whether they meet the standards or not. However, if we find out that you are misleading the public by changing the information that has been approved for you, we make sure that those appliances are seized and forfeited to the state. The importer has the right to petition, but through the minister. At the end of the day, what is done is that you are asked to re-export the appliances if they don't meet the standards.
Thank you, Mr. Zan says dealers and importers of refrigerating appliances must always comply with rules and regulations when it comes to labeling of these appliances. The app also tells the consumer within a 10-kilometer to 14-kilometer radius the list of shops that deal in energy-efficient refrigerating appliances, and is assisted by Google Maps and is able to propose brands most suitable for each shopper's budget. In the event that an appliance is uncertified, the app will return an error message when the model number is entered. This shop owner, however, argues most consumers do not bother to check the labeling despite the massive education by the Energy Commission.
Most of the customers don't know about this thing, like the yellow label on the fridges. They don't even know the importance. Some think like it is maybe to design like something like fashion or no. You know, this yellow labels on the fridges and the freezers and let's say some of the electronic appliances, it was brought up by Ghana Energy Commission, which you have to check whether maybe the kind of item you are going to buy, there is some on it or not. If there is some on it, if there is no some on it, it means that fridge or that particular electronic has not been tested by Ghana Energy Commission, which if you buy, maybe the outcome will be maybe bad.
The app also aids the Commission to identify location of stores that stock inefficient and uncertified refrigerating appliances in aid in effective monitoring.
Global automobile giant Nissan will in 9 months start producing vehicles for the West African market with Ghana as its base if a memorandum of understanding signed Tuesday comes into fruition. The MOU seeks to promote infrastructure development, job creation and skills development. Nissan, which recorded 32% of vehicle sales in Ghana last year, announced it has already settled on Ghana as its corporate office for its Africa operations. At the Jubilee House Tuesday, Trade Minister Alan Kyerematen and Managing Director of Nissan Group of Africa, Mike Whitfield, signed an MOU to begin the process. According to Mr. Kyerematen, government is ready to fast-track the process of putting in place a policy for the automobile sector.
We are sowing the seeds of what potentially can be a major trigger for the transformation of our economy. As I'm sure you are all aware, we have launched as a government a very comprehensive program for industrial transformation. We know that as a country, we've depended on cocoa and gold for over a century, for literally 90% of our export revenues. And the vision of our president is to diversify our economy and to move Ghana beyond aid. And there can be no better testimony for the realization of this vision than what we're about to witness. Again, just to set the record straight, Nissan is the, I'm sure by volume and value, is the biggest auto company in our country. And for Nissan to make a strategic decision to set up a base, a production base assembly plant in Ghana as a major global company, I believe in itself is a reflection of their confidence in our country and the program that our president has launched. There are many things that are significant about developing an automobile industry. The value chain and the supply chain that underpins the auto industry is probably one of the longest.
Nissan Managing Director for Africa, Mike Whitfield, said the company is ready to scale up the MOU once terms are met.
For us, we're entering into this MOU with the government of Ghana, not just because of Ghana. We see Ghana as the gateway for us into Western Africa. And as part of that journey, we've also announced today that we've established and selected Ghana and as our regional office for Accra. So it's a Nissan Motor Company regional office for West Africa based in Ghana. And it's from this office that we will grow our business presence in Ghana and in the region. The minister touched on the auto industry being a multiplier. As I said, step one is the MOU to create a very sound framework and auto policy, because from there, it's a long-term investments. They're long-term. We started in many of the countries. I'll give you an example. In the South African auto industry, they've had a very solid policy since 1995. Today, it's 8% of GDP. It accounts for 56% of its productions exported. So it can become a very significant industry. But the foundation of it is going to be the multiplier effect of component manufacturers, and it's a journey that we've got to start. So for us, a very significant time, in the sense that we've moved, well, certainly from having dealt in many different countries in the world, the speed at which the Honourable Minister and the Ghanaian government have moved has been amazing. And the objectives, I think, are very much the same, and that is to build and come up with a platform for a very sound industry. Nissan, as you know, is the biggest seller in Ghana, but more than that, it is also part of an alliance of Renault, Nissan and Mitsubishi, which makes it the largest automotive alliance in the world as well. So for us, it's very important.
Ghana's High Commissioner to the UK, Papa Owusu Ankomah, says the visit of His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, to Ghana is a sign of the renewal of the friendship that exists between the two countries. The High Commissioner was among dignitaries at the Kotoka International Airport to bid the Prince Charles and Duchess Camilla farewell. Maxwell Agwagba, who has been covering the royal visit, was at the airport and has come through with a wrap of Prince Charles's visit to Ghana.
His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales has ended his 4-day tour of Ghana. He came here from Gambia and now is heading to Nigeria. He would be visiting Abuja and Lagos, where a series of activities have been lined up for him. He was previously scheduled to be at central Nigeria, that is Jos, but that part of the trip has been cancelled because of some security issues. Here at the Kotoka International Airport, to say bye-bye to him, we have the British High Commissioner Ian Walker, Vice President of Ghana Mahmoud Bawumia, and his wife. We also have the Chief of Staff and Ghana's High Commissioner to the UK, Papa Owusu Ankomah, all here to say goodbye to the Prince of Wales. I've been speaking to the UK's High Commissioner to Ghana, Ian Walker, and Ghana's High Commissioner to the UK, Papa Owusu Ankomah, on what they think Ghana has achieved with the visit of His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales.
You look at the warmth of the reception by everyone in Ghana, the people of Ghana. As Royal Highnesses have spent time in Accra and Kumasi at cocoa farms, and they've seen the kind of the vibrancy of this country. And one of our hopes was that we could show them how much Ghana has changed since their last visits, and through them let the wider world see the story of Ghana in a different way. And I really want to make sure that the links that the UK and Ghana have through their people, through every walk of life, we've got to multiply them. And now we've got to not rest on our laurels. We mustn't keep looking backwards. We've got to understand our past, but really now focus on the future. And I think we've covered so much as we look towards the future on things around plastics, on sustainability, on cocoa, and bringing in chief executives on those kind of industries. So I think, the convening power of the UK and Ghana when it works together is really quite something special. And last for me, it was last night was just wonderful.
Elevates our relationship to another level. So for me, it marks a watershed, all right, a renewal of that relationship, and that is what is needed. And as Ian said, my colleague, British High Commissioner said, yesterday's state dinner represented what a closer relationship and collaboration between the UK and Ghana could be, because you had British Ghanaians, right, who had distinguished themselves, even in the areas of fashion, demonstrating that with basic materials from Ghana, they could put Ghana on the world stage.